I've spent most of my life around water. Rivers, creeks, ponds, and most of all, lakes. There's a certain peace in it, you know? Casting a line, waiting for that tug, the soft sound of ripples against the hull of the boat. For me, fishing has always been a way to get away from everything else. People talk too much, bills pile up, work grinds you down. But on the water, all that slips away. It's just you, your line, and whatever's moving under the surface. That's why I still can't wrap my head around what happened out there that evening. It started like any other trip. I drove out to a lake that sits tucked back behind a line of pines about an hour from town. It isn't one of the big popular spots. That's what I liked about it. No jet skis, no weekend warriors blasting music, no kids throwing rocks in the shallows. Just quiet. The dock was old but still solid. A couple of planks had warped from the weather, but the boat launch worked fine. I eased my John boat into the water, tied off and loaded my gear. Just a small cooler, my tackle box, and a couple of rods. I didn't bother with much else. The sun was still high when I set off, the surface glinting like shards of glass. It was the tail end of summer, hot enough that sweat ran down my back just from rowing out. I knew once the sun dipped, the temperature would drop fast. I liked that. Something about that shift always made the fish livelier. I rowed out toward the center of the lake. From there, I could look in every direction and see nothing but tree line and still water. No cabins, no roads, just the dark green pines circling me like a wall. I baited up, cast my line, and settled in. Time stretched in the way it only does when you're fishing. Cast. Reel. Cast. The rhythm works its way into your bones. My only company was the occasional croak of a bullfrog or the drone of insects carrying across the water. After a couple of hours, I noticed the light beginning to change. The sun slid down, burning gold against the treetops, painting the lake in long shadows. It's my favorite time to be out there. When the air cools, the water stills, and it feels like you're the only soul left alive. That's when I felt it. The tug. At first, I thought it was a snag. The line went tight, bowing the rod. I gave it a little pull to work it free, but instead of loosening, it jerked hard. So hard, it nearly wrenched the rod from my grip. "Hell, that's a big one," I muttered, adrenaline kicking in. I braced my feet and leaned back, reeling in, fighting against whatever had taken the bait. The water churned in the fading light, deep ripples spreading out. It wasn't the fight of a bass or a catfish. It was heavier, slower, like dragging something deadweight from the bottom. Sweat broke across my forehead. My arms ached. Still, I kept reeling, kept pulling, refusing to let the thing snap my line. The rod bowed so sharply I thought it might splinter. And then, the head broke the surface. Not a fish, not anything that should have been in that lake. It was a face, a man's face, pale as milk, with skin stretched tight over bone. His hair floated around him in the water like weeds. And his eyes, those blank, dead white eyes, locked on me. His mouth pulled into a smile so wide, so wrong, it showed every tooth, as if he'd been waiting just to grin at me. I froze. The boat rocked under me, the line still taut between us, connecting me to that nightmare. The man didn't thrash, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. He just hung there, half submerged, staring up, smiling. Something in my body broke loose then. Pure animal fear. I let out a sound I don't remember making, dropped the rod, and kicked it overboard as if burning my hands. The splash was deafening. The pale face sank back under, swallowed by the water without so much as a ripple. I didn't wait. I grabbed the oars and rowed harder than I've ever rowed in my life, arms screaming, shoulders tearing with pain. Every second I expected to feel that face rise beside the boat, those white eyes peering in at me. When the dock finally came into view, I nearly rammed the boat into it. I scrambled out, dragged the hull halfway up the bank, and didn't bother tying it off. I just ran to the truck, breath ragged, heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. I didn't look back at the lake. I couldn't. Driving home, the world looked wrong. Every shadow along the road seemed to hide a figure. Every flash of water in the ditches felt like an eye staring at me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands were trembling too hard to get the key in the door. That night, I thought maybe I'd calm down, convince myself it had been a trick of the light, a hallucination, something explainable. But when I closed my eyes, the dream came. I was back in the boat, sun going down, the lake perfectly still, my line in the water. Then, the tug. That terrible weight on the other end, pulling me in. I fought it, reeled, pulled. And again, that face rose from the dark, white eyes, grinning mouth. Only this time, I couldn't drop the rod. My hands were locked to it, knuckles bone white. The line pulled me forward, dragging me closer to the edge of the boat. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The man's mouth opened wider, splitting impossibly far, as if the grin were about to swallow me whole. I woke up drenched in sweat, chest heaving, the image seared into me. But the dream didn't end there. The next night, it came again. The same loop. Cast, tug, face, smile, closer. Each time, I felt myself being pulled nearer to the edge, like the dream was advancing frame by frame. By the fourth night, I was overboard. In the dream, the water swallowed me, dragging me down into cold black. And there he was, waiting, arms open like an old friend, eyes gleaming, grin stretching into something inhuman. I woke choking on air, convinced for a second that lake water was filling my lungs. Since then, it hasn't stopped. Every night, the same dream, looping endlessly. Sometimes it resets at the boat. Sometimes I start already underwater. But always, always that face finds me. That smile follows me. I haven't gone back to the lake. I won't. But here's the thing that keeps me awake now. The last time I dreamed it, when the pale man opened his mouth wide enough to crack the skin at the corners, I swear I heard something. A breath. Not mine. Not the lake's. His. Like he'd finally drawn air again after waiting just beneath the surface for someone stupid enough to reel him up. And when I jolted awake in my bed, gasping, I thought I could still hear it, wet and rattling, coming from the dark corner of my room. I've been on lakes my whole life. There's a rhythm to fishing I've always found comforting. The cast, the weight, the quiet in between. When the world feels heavy, I push out onto the water and let it all drain away into the ripples. That night, I thought I was going to get more of the same. Instead, I dragged something out of the lake that shouldn't exist, something that's still lodged in my head, screaming even when I close my eyes. It was early evening when I set out, maybe 2 hours of daylight left. The air was warm, the lake dead calm. Not a single other boat out there. Perfect. I rowed my John boat out toward a drop-off I like to fish, the water glassy enough that my reflection followed me the whole way. I dropped anchor, baited a hook, and cast out. For a while, it was the usual. A nibble here, a tug there, nothing serious. I leaned back against the bench, watching the sun drop lower, the sky bleeding orange and red over the treetops. That's when the rod bent so hard I thought it would snap. The line went tight, vibrating through the pole into my hands. My heart jumped. It felt heavy, way heavier than any bass or catfish I'd ever hooked. Not thrashing, not darting side to side, just one long, dragging pull like I'd hooked a boulder. I reeled in, muscles burning, sweat running down my neck. Whatever it was didn't fight. It just came closer, slow and steady, as if letting me haul it up. The first thing that broke the surface was black. Not shiny like scales, not patterned like normal fish. Just pure black, as if it had been cut out of the water itself. Then the fins surfaced, shredded and long, twitching like strips of cloth. And then the head came up. I thought I was losing it at first. My brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. It wasn't a fish's head. It was a face. A human face, pale as bone, stretched tight, lips pressed thin and bloodless. The eyes were two hollow pits, dark and deep, locked on me with a blankness that made me feel naked. I stopped reeling, but the thing kept rising, as if it wanted to show itself. The mouth opened. What came out didn't belong in this world. A scream, high-pitched, shrill, tearing through the air so violently I felt it before I heard it. The sound shook the boat, made the water around it ripple. My ears exploded with pain, hot blood spilling out instantly, running down my jaw. I dropped the rod and clamped both hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The scream drilled through bone, vibrating in my skull until it felt like my head would split. My teeth hurt. My eyes watered blood red. The fish's mouth gaped wider, impossibly wide, skin stretching until it tore at the corners. The scream climbed higher, louder, until all I could do was curl in the boat, rocking, choking on panic. I could feel warm fluid soaking my palms where they pressed against my ears. I forced my eyes open through the agony. The thing's face was inches above the surface now, mouth unhinged, shrieking so violently that the lake around it boiled in tiny, frantic ripples. And then, nothing. Silence slammed down so suddenly it made me dizzy. I blinked, and the world was different. The sun was gone. No sunset, no twilight, just pitch black night. The lake stretched around me in every direction, dark and endless. My ears rang with a steady, shrill note, blood dripping onto my shirt. I spun the boat, but there was no sign of the dock, no hint of the tree line beyond vague black shapes. Every direction looked the same. Panic set in hard. I rode blind, arms shaking, water lapping against the hull. Every few strokes I stopped, heart pounding, trying to spot shore. Nothing. Just water and dark. I don't know how long I fought like that. The air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. My ears throbbed, leaking, every pulse of blood sending another wave of pain through my skull. Eventually, I dropped the oars. My body just quit. I curled up on the bench, dizzy, shivering, the silence pressing so tight it felt like the lake itself was holding me in place. My eyes sagged shut against my will. When they opened again, it was morning. The sun was up, the lake calm. My boat was tied neatly to the dock. I sat there in disbelief. I had no memory of rowing back, no memory of tying off. But there I was, gear still in place, cooler unopened. My shirt was stiff with dried blood. My ears ached deep, clogged, muffled like I'd been underwater for hours. I stumbled out of the boat, legs shaking, and stood on the dock staring at the water. Perfectly calm, like nothing had happened. But something had. Because I still hear it. At first, it was faint, tucked in the corners of quiet moments. A high-pitched ringing that wasn't just in my ears. Then, late at night, I started hearing it more clearly. The scream, replaying in sharp bursts, short at first, then longer. Last night, it woke me out of a dead sleep. I bolted upright, hands clamped to my ears, but it wasn't just in my head anymore. It was in the walls, in the floorboards, in the air itself. My nose bled freely, soaking the pillow. When it finally cut off, I swore I heard water slapping against wood, like something bumping the underside of a boat. I live 20 miles from that lake. But I don't think that matters anymore, because whatever I pulled up from the depths, whatever wore that human face and screamed like it wanted to split me apart, I don't think it stayed in the water. I think it followed me back. I go fishing every weekend with my buddy, Matt. It's our thing. We've both got families, jobs that grind us down, the usual responsibilities that pile up until you feel like you're suffocating. But out on the lake, none of that matters. We've been doing it since high school. It's routine, comforting, the one part of life that still feels like it belongs to us. That Saturday started off like all the others. We were up before sunrise, truck loaded with the John boat, tackle, cooler, rods. The air was cool, mist hanging low over the trees. Perfect conditions. The lake we chose that day was one we didn't usually hit. It's a bit farther out, tucked down a gravel road most people don't even know exists. That's what we liked about it. Fewer people, less noise, more fish. We got the boat in the water, pushed off, and rowed toward one of the deeper spots near the center. The mist was still clinging to the surface, glowing faintly as the sun began to push over the horizon. It was beautiful. Quiet enough that we could hear the oars dipping and the faint creak of the wood. We set up, cast out, and settled into the rhythm. It was good, peaceful, until Matt noticed something off in the distance. At first, I thought he was just pointing out a log, but as the mist shifted, I saw it too. Another boat, sitting low in the water, about 30 yards away. No movement, no sound, just drifting. Guess we're not the only ones out here, Matt said, squinting. But something about it immediately felt wrong. It wasn't anchored, but it wasn't drifting far either. Just hanging there. Let's check it out, Matt suggested. I wasn't sure. Normally we don't bother other people, but the longer I looked, the more unsettled I felt. The boat wasn't positioned like someone fishing, no rods out, no figures moving, just still. We rowed closer. The air seemed to thicken with each pull, the water dead calm around us. When we were about 10 feet away, the details came into focus. It was a small aluminum fishing boat, maybe a 12-footer, and inside were two people. At first, I thought they were passed out. Both of them slumped awkwardly against the seats. One on the bow, one on the stern. Neither moved as we approached. "Hey!" Matt called out. No response. We drew closer, the mist curling back like it didn't want to reveal what it was hiding. And then I saw it. The man in the bow had his head tilted back, throat wide open, a long, deep gash cut clean across, blood soaked down his shirt and pooled dark across the aluminum floor. His eyes were still open, glassy and lifeless. The second man was worse. His throat was slashed too, but he had multiple stab wounds across his chest and stomach. His hands were frozen in front of him like he'd tried to shield himself. Blood slicked the floor beneath him, still wet and red. Both of them looked fresh. I froze. My stomach turned so fast I nearly leaned over the side of our boat to vomit. Matt swore under his breath, pale as a ghost. "What the fuck?" he whispered. It didn't look real. It looked like something from a movie. But the smell hit us next. Coppery, raw, unmistakable. This wasn't staged. This wasn't a prank. They were dead. And that's when I saw movement in the water, not far from the boat. A ripple, then a head breaking the surface. A diver. The figure rose just enough for me to see the black wetsuit, the mask, the tank strapped to their back. They moved fast, swimming away from the boat, cutting through the water with practiced efficiency. "Did you see that?" I hissed. Matt nodded, eyes wide. "What the hell are they?" "Shut up," I snapped. We watched as the diver disappeared into the mist, slipping under again with barely a ripple. Gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Just us, the dead men, and the endless lake. My brain spun in every direction at once. Who the hell slits two guys' throats out on a lake? Why? And why was a diver swimming away from the scene? Every instinct screamed at me to row the hell out of there. But my hands felt frozen to the oars. I kept staring at the bodies, at the blood still gleaming wet in the gray morning light. "Call someone," I muttered finally. My voice barely worked. Matt scrambled for his phone. No service. We were too far out. Mine was the same. No bars. We just sat there, both of us gripping our phones like they'd magically fix themselves. "What do we do?" Matt asked. I shook my head. My throat was dry, my ears ringing with blood pressure. The sound of a distant motor suddenly carried across the lake. Faint at first, then growing. Panic ripped through me. "Row," I hissed. "Row now." Matt blinked at me. "What?" "Go. Whoever that was, what if they're coming back?" His face drained. He grabbed the oars, and we spun the boat, cutting hard back toward the launch. Every stroke felt like it echoed across the water. I didn't look back at the bodies. I didn't look back at the mist where the diver vanished. I just stared at the tree line, willing it to get closer. The motor noise faded again, but I couldn't shake the thought. What if they'd seen us? What if they knew we'd seen the boat, the bodies, the whole damn thing? We made it to the dock, hauled the boat up, and practically threw our gear into the truck bed. My hands shook so hard I could barely work the straps. Once we were on the gravel road, I finally allowed myself to breathe. But it wasn't relief. It was worse. Because I realized something. The diver wasn't surprised to see us. They didn't panic. They didn't try to hide. They just left. Calm. Like they already had what they wanted. We drove until we hit signal and called the sheriff. They asked us 1,000 questions, told us to wait. We did, on the side of the road, hearts hammering, eyes on the rearview mirror, like we expected headlights to appear and run us off the road. Deputies came, took our statements, sent boats out. They confirmed what we already knew. 2 men, dead, throats cut, stabbed. They wouldn't tell us more. Matt hasn't been the same since. He keeps checking his locks, says he's sure someone's been outside his house at night. I don't know if he's right or if paranoia is just chewing him up. Me, I can't stop thinking about the diver, about the way they swam off like we didn't matter, like maybe we were already accounted for.